All right. It's 9 o'clock. We'll bring this meeting to order. Will everybody please stand and... Oh, okay, roll call. Sit down. We have to do this verbally. Make it fun.
And Directors Osborne and Zini, Dwyer and Day. Present. Director Veerkamp is participating remotely as stated on today's agenda. General Manager Abercrombie, General Counsel Polson, and Board Clerk Sullivan present.
All right, now we will stand and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We're looking for an adoption of our agenda.
Second.
All right. Those in favor of adopting the agenda? Public comment?
Who moved it?
George and Alan Day, Director Day. Okay. Now, we'll ask for public comment on the agenda.
If members of the public would like to address the board at any public comment period, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda.
All right.
At this time, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to comment on the adoption of today's agenda.
Okay. Communications. Do you have any
Would
communications?
you like me to call for the vote?
Oh, of course. Yes, call for the vote, please.
How do you vote, Division 1?
Aye.
Division 2?
Aye.
Division 3?
Aye.
Division 5?
Aye.
Division 4?
Aye.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
All right, we'll move to the general managers and communications.
I have one recognition that I'd like to highlight today. Then I have 2 reports later on in the agenda.
Okay.
We received a nice letter from Sherry McCullough, Board Chair of Grizzly Flats Community Services District, expressing her sincere gratitude because we sent crews and equipment to their community to assist them repairing their raw water conveyance line and other work to assist them getting their service back in together after the Caldor fire. So it was much appreciated. And that concludes the recognition portion of my report.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the public for sending those letters of positive imaging of our employees. They are awesome, and we want to always acknowledge their dedication to the ratepayers. All right, public comment. That any item that's not on the agenda, this is an opportunity for public comment.
Again, if members of the public would like to address the board during this meeting, during any public comment period, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. At this time, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on our open comment period.
Thank you very much. Communications, this is your opportunity. General Manager.
I have 2 reports today I'd like to share with the board and the public. Jesse Sage will come up and talk about EID, again, was recognized with the Transparency Certificate of Excellence. Jesse?
Good morning, President Anzini, members of the board, and folks who will be seeing this maybe on YouTube. I am Jesse Sage, your communications manager. As General Manager Abercrombie mentioned, we recently got the Special District certification, Transparency Certification. This is the 4th time we have received it. We're very proud of this. This certification requires that we have ethics training, we have open, properly conducted public meetings such as the one we're at, a raft of things that are posted to our website, over 15 specific elements, and also that we engage in public outreach through things like our newsletter and other engagement projects. Now, this is an extraordinarily wonderful thing, and I'd like to highlight two people in particular who spearheaded this. Jennifer Sullivan, who sort of gets the ball rolling to get this application moving, and my colleague, Karen Cross, who as the district's webmaster ensures that the range and variety of information on our website continues to be updated. And lastly, I'd like to say, I work in a two-person communications group, but I feel like communications at EID has more than 200 people. Everyone at the district, from folks who are working on important projects all across the district, have a chance to work in a very transparent and an excellent way. And I'm pleased that we are able to have this for the fourth time, this 2-year district transparency certificate of excellence.
I just wanted to tack on here a little bit. Jesse mentioned that there are about 15 elements that are required. That is just website. This is 2 full pages, and the full submittal is about 200 pages to CSDA. It takes many hours and a lot of coordination with staff around the district to pull that information and get it to CSDA. It's a long process. Not everybody that applies receives it. Some people don't even apply because they know that they don't qualify. And again, reiterating that a lot of the credit goes to Karen Cross, because we do receive we did receive an email from CSDA. It's not the first time, complimenting us on how easily navigated the website is, how easy all the information was to find. And that's because of her and Jesse's constant hours and keeping things up to date. But also they receive the staff information from the staff to put this on the website. So it's really them and how they're managing it and coordination by staff all across the district, like Jesse said.
Yes.
Thank you. I have one more. Not sure which one's going to brief us on that, Brian Mueller or Dan Corcoran, regarding the additional CAL FIRE grant for reducing wildfire hazards, as well as FEMA stuff. Take it
Actually,
away,
I have
Dan.
a brief two-part presentation for me this morning. Dan Corcoran, Operations Director, and then Brian Deason, our Environmental Resource Supervisor, will be able to give you the second part of our update. I'm happy to report that we were able to submit 2 high-quality applications to the most recent CAL FIRE Fire Prevention Grant Program. The first one that I'll talk to briefly this morning is the equipment that we're hoping to secure through this program. As the board will recall, we did include about $150,000 in the CIP for a portion of that equipment that we plan for our new right-of-way reinforcement program to use. Given the dedication of our water construction supervisor and our new fleet supervisor, I felt comfortable stepping up that game, and so we actually submitted for 2 pieces of equipment for the full $250,000, which we do hope to hear back on probably by June. And then, as you're obviously well aware, the equipment lead time is several months, so hopefully we will have positive news for you this summer, and then be able to have that equipment on the ground the first part of 23. And I'll turn over to Brian to give you the second part of the update.
Good morning, members of the board. Brian Deason, Environmental Resources Supervisor for the district. And I give an update on the second CAL FIRE grant application that we applied for. This is for the protection of wooden flumes that were unaffected by the Caldor fire. So we're looking to implement fuel treatments on over 500 acres to protect wooden flumes from potential ignitions that occur from Highway 50 and would move upslope. Then the other program that we're also applying for is through Cal OES Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. And this is also, we're submitting 5 different applications for consideration for over $30 million worth of funding. These projects include converting wooden flumes to concrete conveyance structures to make them more resilient in the event of a wildfire, and also for the Sly Park intertie.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you,
Thank
Dan. Just wanted to brief the board that we're actively pursuing any and all grants that we can get, and I thought this was a short presentation just to let you know what we're doing.
Okay, Director Dwyer?
Yes, thank you. And of course, we wish us the very best and success. There's several applicants for these grants across the county and across the state. Just for the CAL FIRE, for the CAL FIRE grants especially, the AEU unit, the Amador El Dorado unit, which includes us, a little bit of Sacramento and Amador County. I think the grant applications were up to 170. And probably for our county, we'll be fortunate to get 1 or 2. That's my personal opinion. So it's a very, very competitive market out there, and I'm sure that based on our EID's track record, you'll be successful. So thank you.
Director Day?
Yeah, just a thought, because we have been talking about flumes a lot this past year. As we go about replacing our wooden flumes, I think it would be cool. I mean, one of the things that I've always thought was so neat and interesting about EID is our history and our connection to the gold rush and to the early days of the West and the county. And I think it would be neat if we could save a section of flume and maybe rebuild it, out front or something like that, to try to save it for future generations to remember where it all started from and how we, get water down these steep mountainsides. It's pretty amazing. So just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, thank you. Actually, Jesse's working on a program on where our water comes from and where it goes, and that's a good suggestion on that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. No comments? Okay, all right. Clerk?
None today, thank you.
All right, Board of Directors, individuals? All right, I will make a comment, a couple more. One is I appreciate the fact that the staff has submitted reports regarding the grants. It's very thorough to me, and these are the subjects that I've always felt are important for public agencies to seek out and find. And I'm very, very proud of the fact that you guys have actually applied for these grants. We're starting to benefit from that, because there is a flush amount of money out here that we need to be first with our hand out, because our projects are already set up. Instead of kicking the can down the road, this is an opportunity for us to move those capital projects up. So I think it's really, really important that we continue that say. As for transparency, I appreciate the reason why we have that award. Yes, I understand the staff did a lot to get that recognition, and I really do thank you. In this world of World Wide Web and internet access and social media, EID has stepped up to the podium and is taking the reins in hand and making sure our information is given to our ratepayers. And ratepayers, in the last 2 years, I've been spending an awful lot of time in front of computers. So when you go to look for information at EID, and I myself have gone to other agencies to kind of seek out information, our information is readily available. So I appreciate the efforts that the webmaster has been doing, and I look forward to even better results. Yes.
I was remiss. Last week I met with Farm Trails, their monthly meeting, give them an update on where we are with our water supplies, as I best could describe it. They wanted to know about the repairs to the flume and how, because of the weather, which was a mixed bag. The weather was good and from the water supply side, but from the repair side, it was delayed everything. So, but anyway, they were very receptive. We talked about the district in general and not one negative comment, so it was very good.
Okay, thank you, Director Osborne. Anything from Director Veerkamp?
Yeah, thank you, Lori. Been participating in watching on the water agency meeting. They had a 2.5 hour meeting the other last Wednesday. A lot of good information there, and just trying to keep that tie close as we move forward. Also, Director Osborne and I have been working with a group to try to get the state regs, keep them in place. Thanks to George for a lot of work that he's done, and a bunch of others that are helping with that cause to protect our watershed. And I think we're making progress, George. I would think that we're finally starting to make some progress. So it's a tedious task, but we're working on it. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we move on to the consent calendar, I just want to, yeah? Did I miss something? All right, before we move on the consent calendar, I just wanted to tell the public that information item number 8 has been taken off the agenda. Basically, we need to bring it up to the next meeting. The person making the presentation is not available. And this is key information that this board has asked for, so. All right, so we'll move forward to approve the consent calendar. Any items so board members want to remove?
I'd just like to make a comment because of last minute.
Let's have a first and a second,
Oh,
and then.
I'll move it to make a
second.
comment.
All right, been motion and seconded to approve the consent calendar.
Just a comment, because of a last minute positive test, I was unable to attend. The public agenda reflects I was absent. I was actually having to do it as a public member, and I'm sure that everybody remembers my comments. But anyway, I was here in spirit and not physically. So anyway, just as a comment to the public, I didn't miss the meeting. I just couldn't sit here in my normal position.
Thank you, Director Osborne.
For clarification, board members are able to participate remotely with advance notice, but because Director Osborne did not receive a positive test until the morning of the meeting when he arrived, he went home, logged on as a member of the public. Even though his vote was not considered, he had many comments for each item, and those were considered as a member of the public.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, there's been a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
We will, if any members of the public wish to speak on the adoption of the consent calendar, we'll give them just a second here. President Anzini, at this time, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the approval of the consent calendar. Would you like me to call for the vote?
Yes, please.
How do you vote? Division 1?
Aye.
Division 2?
Aye.
Division 3?
Aye.
Division 5?
Aye.
Division 4?
Aye.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we will move on to our workshop items. Item number 7 from the Office of the General Counsel. Maps are fun.
I'm gonna do the PowerPoint first, and then do the shares.
Yes. So.
Yeah, I got it, yeah. Yep.
So we need to click, and then you need to go back up here and share screen. So where do you want to be?
I want
Good morning, board members and public. I'm Brian Polson. I'm General Counsel at the district, and I'm going to give a presentation today on our ongoing efforts to do our redistricting for division boundaries. Today's presentation is going to be a little bit different because we're not going to be we're going to be doing the PowerPoint along with some interactive stuff. But give us just a second to get things up and going here. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go back to here, right?
Nope, you're not going to do anything right now. So,
Go here. Okay. I think we're ready to roll here. I'm going to start off with the PowerPoint, which was included in the board packet, and run through some slides that are mostly familiar just to orient ourselves. Again, this is an update on the district's ongoing effort to redraw division boundaries pursuant to both federal and state law regarding ensuring that our populations are equal. As the board has seen a number of times now, and as a reminder, we last adopted our current division boundaries in 2011 following the 2010 federal census. And beginning last year in May, and then a number of times since then, we have updated the board on our effort to redraw division boundaries in light of the 2020 federal census. Next slide, please. I kind of went through this. We're mandated by federal and state law to make sure that our division boundaries are proportional, and so that's what is driving our effort. Next slide, please. As I indicated in previous meetings, our objectives are to first and foremost ensure that that each of the divisions are proportional in population, and also that the district's division boundaries avoid imposing impediments to voting on a number of grounds: racial, ethnic, linguistic, and other. And these requirements derive from the Federal Voting Rights Act. Next slide, please. Here are a number of factors that we have and will consider during the course of drawing division boundaries. And on the next slide, you will see a number of additional factors that the district is considering. Next slide, please. We've been through all of this before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but these include a number of what we can call communities of interest. And so next slide. And here, this is the final slide before we jump into some maps. Just a reminder of the analytical factors that we discussed at the last redistricting meeting update. And these are the factors that we've essentially graded our mapping alternatives on. And they are, how do each of the mapping alternatives treat the communities of interest associated with EID services, those being water, wastewater, and recycled water? And then how did the mapping or the division split our most populous communities like El Dorado Hills, Cameron Park, and others, Diamond Springs, Placerville, El Dorado, et cetera? And then finally, how do each of the mapping alternatives minimize voter disruption, moving voters from one division to another and disrupting the cycle upon which they vote for their representatives? So with those in mind, I'm going to turn now to first, this is a map of our current division boundaries as a refresher, and you're going to see this as we go through our mapping alternatives as well. So before I go on to the mapping alternatives, I'm going to shift gears here from the PowerPoint presentation to a more of an interactive mapping presentation. And to do that, I'm first going to minimize that. Oh, first I got to share my screen, don't I?
no, pull up what you want first.
This is what I want.
You want the EID, okay? So now go over to there and see the one like that. Nope, other one.
Here we go. All right, give us just a second. just, okay, here we go. All right. The board and public should now be seeing the screen that I am looking at, which is the district's webpage, eid.org, and then this is, I've navigated to the Redistricting 2021 webpage. What I'm going to be showing today is a portal by which the public can access our interactive draft maps. I'm also going to shift from this to our internal GIS system. Since board members expressed interest in our GIS system, I'd like to show that off a little bit, and also because it has some functionality that I'd like to show to the board. So before we get started, I'm gonna first jump over to our GIS system. What you're seeing in front of you now is a web-based mapping application that the district has developed for its internal use of developing map alternatives. And what you're seeing right now is the district's current division boundaries. We have prepared several mapping alternatives that I'm going to go through today. And before I do that, there's just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight for the board. The first thing I'm going to do is to show you here what you're looking at is a map of our current division boundaries, and on the right I have a number of layers these are not all of the layers that we've utilized in developing mapping alternatives, but there are a number of here that allow us to overlay certain things and help us better define our communities of interest. So just for example, I could show you here under our current division boundaries, if I wanted to run down and show you where our recycled water system is, I'll click on that layer and it comes up a little bit. Oops, sorry about that. Give me just a second. There's a little bit of a delay, so it's making it kind of tricky for me, but if I zoom in on this area, here you'll see in a lightly shaded color of green, I'm sorry, purple. This is our recycled water line. So I've got the transparency here a little bit off, and making it hard to see the purple here. So I apologize about that. Rather than fix it on the fly, I'll just highlight that what this layer is showing us is where the recycled water distribution system is within the district's current divisions, and how it's split between the current divisions. So I'm going to take that layer off here, and we'll stay in this general area here, which is El Dorado Hills and Cameron Park north of Highway 50. And I'll click on the sewer layer here, and now you should be able to see, once it loads, where the district's wastewater collection system collection system is located. Again, now this is in light green, and I apologize for the light color there, making it a little bit hard to see. But these are just examples of some of the layers that we're using as we develop mapping alternatives. I'm going to take that layer off now. There's one final layer that I'd like to show you that we used, that we've relied on fairly heavily in the development of our mapping alternatives. I'm going to scroll out first and recenter our map a little bit. And that, I'm going to take off the district's current division boundary layer, and I'm going to click on the community regions layer here. And this is a layer that we've obtained from the county designating major regions within the district here. It didn't click on, did it? Okay, so this shows you some of the more populated regions, such as El Dorado Hills, and the extent of El Dorado Hills as defined in the county general plan. You've got Cameron Park in red, Shingle Springs in orange. Over in blue, this is Diamond Springs, El Dorado, and then Placerville in purple. So kind of keep these boundaries in mind. You'll see in some of our mapping alternatives how we've tried to incorporate these general areas. For reasons that we've discussed in the past, it's virtually impossible to keep some of these areas in a single division. El Dorado Hills is a good example. It's just too populated. But we have tried to incorporate these region boundaries into our mapping alternatives. Okay, now I'm going to take that community regions layer off. And one more map before I start to show you the draft alternatives that we're going to present to you. We've had not a ton of public feedback yet. For obvious reasons, we haven't really shown any draft maps yet, but we have gotten some public feedback, and one member of the public in particular provided some very useful suggestions for how to draft a map, and that was former Director Greg Preda, who sent several emails along with some hand-drawn maps depicting proposed changes. What we tried to do was to take his suggestions and map them, and only the suggested changes. And so what I'm about to show you is what that map looks like and how it would move the current district division boundaries. And I'm going to talk through this just very briefly before I switch over. This particular map is called Alternative 1. It's not included in the public packet. And the reason is because once we made the changes that Director Preda had suggested, then we looked at how the population of that particular alternative looked. And so what I'm showing you now is our dashboard, and this dashboard calculates each of the division's populations based upon the changes that we've made to that current map. This dashboard is available within our GIS system as well as the interactive portal that I'm going to show you that's linked to our website, so the public can access this information as well. But what you see here is with just those changes, we don't quite achieve the parity among each of the divisions. And so we had to do a little bit more to achieve population parity within all of the divisions. So jumping back to the map now, then what we tried to do was, take these particular changes recommended and then adjust them a little bit more to achieve parity. And so what I'm going to show you now, I'm going to show you now what we're calling Alternative 1A. So this is Director Preda's suggestions, along with a few additional changes to achieve population parity. So here's where, this is the first map included in today's board packet as a draft alternative. Before I jump into how this changes, I'm going to switch back over to the dashboard and show you this is Alternative 1A. So you can see that the changes that we've made have smoothed out the population within each of the divisions. Roughly, the red line in the center is our target population, 26,000, I think it's 441. And then the green lines above and below the red line are 1%, this 1% margin, 1% above, 1% below. And that's the target we're trying to reach in order to achieve equal population. So this is Alternative 1A. And let me just highlight some of the changes from our current division boundaries. I'll start off in El Dorado Hills. We've moved the Salmon Falls area here in the northern part of El Dorado Hills along Folsom Lake. We moved all of that from Division 3 into Division 5. This was a comment that Director Day had requested that we take a look at and see whether that was feasible, since for a number of reasons it makes sense to include that area in El Dorado Hills. We've moved all of what was Division 5 south of Highway 50 into Division 4, and you can see that Division 4 changes fairly substantially compared to its prior or the current existing division boundaries. So All of El Dorado Hills south of 50 is now included in Division 4. And what this map really does is it changes El Dorado Hills from what was 3 divisions, 2, 4, and 5, into 2, and that is Divisions 4 and 5. In order to keep the population of Division 4 roughly proportional, we then had to take some of what is currently in Division 4 out and move it into Division 2. So you can see if I highlight this area here of Cameron Park, you can see that we're using, I believe this is Cameron Park Boulevard as the boundary to divide all the way down to Highway 50 to divide Cameron Park between Divisions 2 and 4. I'm sorry, this is Cameron Park Drive. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. This is Cambridge Boulevard. My apologies. This is Cambridge Boulevard here. So Cambridge Boulevard is the dividing line. And you'll see all these sort of oddly shaped polygons. These are the federal census blocks that you're looking at here. So we haven't, created these. These were created by the federal census, but we're utilizing the blocks to achieve our population parity. So I'm just showing this to you as an example. Now, what I'm going to do here is scroll back out. Again, we're within the EID internal GIS web portal, but I'm going to switch over to show you what this looks like in the public portal, the interactive maps that we've made available to the public. As I said at the beginning, this can be accessed from the district's webpage, eid.org. I think it's /redistricting. And if I scroll down this page, here's a link to the interactive draft maps. I'm going to allow those to load for a second. And once you access this page, you just get a little pop-up that says, hey, these are draft maps. They're not final. And that's really about what that says. Subject to change, so check back often kind of thing. So in this version of the map, what you're seeing right now is the district's current division boundaries without the color. We did this so that we could overlay the proposed alternatives and still be able to discern how they're different from the current division boundaries. So the current divisions are in these black lines, black dashed lines. And now I'm going to come over here to the layer list and show you the map that we were just looking at in the other system. And here it is. This is alternative 1A. Now, if I zoom in, you can see the changes that we just discussed, those here in the Cameron Park area. But beyond Cameron Park, let me just point out how this particular alternative changes some of the other communities of interest that we've talked about. Coming over here into Diamond Springs area, Division 1, current boundary was here. I'm sorry. Actually, yeah, okay, so Division 1 doesn't change significantly in the Diamond Springs, El Dorado area, but if you look south of that, it does pick up quite a bit of area south of South County, including Outingdale, down here at the very bottom of the screen. This particular mapping alternative consolidates most of the recycled water customers into Division 4, almost all of them, I think, under this particular alternative. It spreads wastewater customers among all of the divisions, including Divisions 1 and 3, 3 with the fewest number of wastewater customers, but still with some. In terms of how it affects our voters, it does move some of Diamond Springs from Division 2 into Division 1 over in this area here. And as you can see north of 50, it moves some of Division 2 into now into Division 3. Recall that moving our customers from even numbered divisions to odd numbered divisions means that they will go for a longer period of time before they're able to vote for their representative, which is an impact that we're trying to avoid or minimize to the extent that we can. It is inevitable that will happen in certain areas, but we're trying to minimize that impact. And then finally, this particular mapping alternative, it preserves the integrity of the city of Placerville, which is according to our, as does our current district boundaries. So that's something to consider as well. So this is map alternative 1A. Before I move on to the next alternatives, I just want to pause to see if there are any questions from the board.
No questions, but it's, I think it's a very clean map. The districts are more compact, not so higgledy-piggledy spread out, which I think is a big positive. Certainly that it's weird to see my district get carved up, but, but I know it's inevitable. I mean, when I was first elected, it was all of El Dorado Hills, and then we did redistricting, and I lost part of it, and now I'm losing a lot of it, but that's just the way I know the way it goes. So it's kind of odd, but yeah, that from El Dorado Hills, which was actually in 4 districts because of that Salmon Falls area, to being in 2, makes a lot of sense. Cameron Park too big to be in 1, but having them in 2 is good. And then the other areas not split up, like Placerville and Diamond Springs and stuff, I think it's very, very positive.
Thank you.
I guess a comment is, while it improves the distribution and maintains the integrity of the communities for pretty much for 4 and 5, for 2, it really bifurcates Cameron Park. And so that community of interest is now split.
I agree, it was split though before. And so that's not really changing. One of the pluses of this is that most of the movement is between 2 and 4. And so those people are still going to stay on the same election cycle.
Yeah.
So that's a positive.
Right, and that's a correction there. But of course, with the population growth, there's somewhere along the line, I was representing not just parts of Cameron Park, but also parts of El Dorado Hills. So it doesn't really change too much of who they're going to be voting for. And of course, the important thing is I'm still in my district. So I'd hate to be gerrymandered out for some reason, but it does come with a more of a continuous flow. And I understand this better than when I ran for this office, because it was always like who is representing what area, but it didn't matter because most of the people that I would talk to were from El Dorado Hills and Cameron Park. So, it kind of just congenializes, puts them all together. So, yeah.
Okay, then I'm going to then take the alternative 1A layer off here, and I'm going to move to alternative 2. So this is the next alternative that we're going to consider. Before we jump into the details, let me just point out that from this platform, in order to see the dashboard that I showed you before, I'm going to come up here to the heading and, oh, nope, other side, right over here. I can click on Dashboard for Draft Alternatives. Again, this is in the public environment. Any person can access this. And here I will expand the alternative 2, since this is the one that we're going to be looking at. And so this is what that population distribution looks like for alternative 2. Let's go back to that map so that we can talk about it. Oops. Boy, this ribbon up here is going to cause me some problems. Let me just, there we go. Okay. We're now in alternative 2. So we'll start out in El Dorado Hills. Salmon Falls area, it goes from Division 3 to Division 5, as in the past, the prior alternative 1A. If you look down here south of 50, rather than having Division 4 take over south of 50, instead Division 2 expands westward. So Division 2 previously went essentially to the Latrobe Road line and now it expands all the way across to the county boundary. So, you know, this alternative in El Dorado Hills is not unlike, it's not significantly different than our current division boundaries. It uses Highway 50 to divide Cameron Park north and south. It uses Highway 50 in El Dorado Hills. So it maintains the current distribution or division of El Dorado Hills between 2, 4, and 5, but it moves Salmon Falls out of 3 into 5. So I guess to Director Day's earlier point, instead of having 4 divisions in El Dorado Hills, now you have 3. There's some change here in Cameron Park, where, you know, if I kind of zoom in here, you can look at this particular area. Division 4 expands eastward over toward Cameron Park Drive. This is where the airport area is, I believe, in Cameron Park Lake, to pick up a little bit of population and smooth out the numbers for us here. Coming over here to the eastern part of the division, you'll see that El Dorado Hills and, I'm sorry, not El Dorado Hills, Diamond Springs and El Dorado gets consolidated into mostly Division 2, which is a change. Previously, you can see that Highway 49 area was a dividing line in those communities, and now virtually all of Diamond Springs and El Dorado are now included in Division 2. Unfortunately, that means you've got to move Division 1, and so Division 1 expands northward here in this area to pick up part of the area that is currently in Placerville but south of Highway 50. Additionally, Division 1 picks up the South County down here, including Outingdale, as well as, if you look at the very top of the map, the Swansboro Mosquito area is now included in Division 1 for this alternative. It's also, I should have said that Division 3 picks up a fairly substantial portion of Shingle Springs and comes over all the way over to Rescue. This is an area previously in Division 2, and that would be moving into Division 3. So Highway 50 becomes a major dividing line in this particular alternative between Divisions 3 and 2, 2 and 4, and 2 and 5. Okay, I'm going to click out of that. There we go. Now let me just excuse me one second. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's right there. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. We're just taking care of some Zoom functionality here. So let me jump back here to the dashboard so that you can see what this population distribution looks like. In this alternative 2, we're very close, but not all the way there to our 1% goal. Division 2 is just under that 1% population target. And if I show you the map again, that would actually make some sense given where this is located and given where we are seeing the most growth in the county. If you look down here where there has been and will continue to be a lot of development, Division 2, you know, leaving a little bit of room for Division 2 to grow is probably not a bad idea, and it could be justified, you know, for on those grounds for why we're not achieving exact, you know, 1% margin. The others are very, very close. 5 again is within that 1% tolerance, but a little low. And then Division 1 is a little bit over the 1% tolerance. But again, if you look at the map, that makes some sense in light of the growth patterns that we've seen in the eastern part of the county, which is to say not as much growth as in the western part. Okay, and that, we didn't talk about voter disruption, but you can see there is there is some voter disruption here. A large portion of Division 2 goes to Division 3. A lot of Division 2 goes into Division 1. Some of Division 3 goes into Division 1, which doesn't have the same kind of effect, but I just want to highlight that this particular alternative does have some disruption there. So before I move on to the next alternative, I'll just pause to see if there are any questions or comments.
Yeah, you pretty much hit the points. In going through this one, I noticed that the odd even movement and a fair amount of disruption on this. Also, Division 2 gets really elongated, and you have two very disparate communities, and so I'm a little uncomfortable with that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, excuse me. I really don't know what the potentials are going to be, but when they build a new bridge across into Swansboro, I suspect that there's going to be some development out in that area already. The price of property's already gone up in anticipation of that bridge. So what will actually develop out of that with the county zoning and all that stuff, I really don't know. But there is the potential for that piece into Swansboro becoming more populated.
Okay, then I'm gonna, let's see here, where'd my layer list go? Now I'm going to take off alternative 2 and go to alternative 3. Okay, so this is the next alternative, and before we get started too much, or down the road too far into the particular changes, I wanted to just let you know that what we tried to do in this particular alternative, which was different than the ones that I showed you previously, was to take the existing division boundaries and make as few changes as possible in order to achieve population parity. It turned out there weren't that many changes that we needed to make in order to smooth out the population, but arguably the changes that we did make may not make sense in terms of preserving communities of interest. So just bear that in mind as we walk through these. Okay, the first, well, as we have with the past, let's start up here in northern El Dorado Hills. We included, I'm gonna zoom in here so you get a better look. The prior boundary for divisions 3 and 5, oh no, I'm gonna blank on this road here. I guess I could zoom in. Lake Hills Boulevard, thank you. Okay, Lake Hills Drive, actually. Is that what it's called? This was the current division boundary line. What we did was move the line over so that it uses Salmon Falls Boulevard as the population divider, and that makes some sense. Salmon Falls Boulevard here, going north and south, and then I believe this is Green Valley Road, going east and west. That's a fairly significant change there. It arguably improves Division 5 somewhat by the inclusion of that Lake Hills subdivision there, but it still excludes a fairly substantial part of that northern El Dorado Hills and keeps it in Division 3. Zooming out, if you look south of Highway 50, again, Division 2 expands over all the way to the county line, but Division 5 still maintains a portion of that south of Highway 50 area, and that includes Town Center and just that a small portion. Yeah, yes, correct. I think Carson Creek is a little bit south of there. So that's a change that I wanted to highlight. Moving over Cameron Park, there's only a very small portion in the rescue area that Division 4 picks up. And note that Division 4 also loses a small portion over here in its western part in that Serrano area. But Division 4 remains very similar to what it is currently. Division 2 is very similar as well. It maintains most of the area north of Highway 50 that it is currently, that it includes currently. And then over in El Dorado, Diamond Springs, Division 2 loses a little bit of territory to Division 1. And I'm going to zoom out now. You'll notice here that Green Valley Road is used here as a dividing line, where everything north of Green Valley Road would be in Division 3, and everything south would be split between 2, 4, and 5. So, and then I think finally over here, north of Highway 50, Division 3 picks up some territory that was previously in Division 1 up here in the Smith Flat area. I think that's what that is. Yeah, Camino, eastern Camino area. I'm sorry, western. So, okay, I'm going to back out here and just so that give you the general sense. Again, the goal is to try and minimize the number of changes. And I think, you know, we could do that, but arguably the changes there, you know, as I said, they may or may not make sense. I'm going to switch over to the dashboard and show you what the population distribution of Division 3 looks like. And here it is here, with all of the divisions achieving that 1% target. Okay, going back to the map. Any questions or comments before I go to the final mapping alternative?
Yeah, on this one, you know, unfortunately, it keeps El Dorado Hills fractured. It's in 4 districts. And also it's kind of funky having Division 3 in El Dorado Hills and Cameron Park. It's kind of odd. And then Shingle Springs is kind of divided up. So this one's I'm not a fan of.
Okay, then let's go to the final alternative, and I know this presentation is getting long. Yeah, hey, we're finally showing you some maps. Okay, here we go. Final draft map alternative, and this is alternative 4. So let me begin by summarizing the changes. Here we have changed El Dorado Hills fairly significantly from the last several maps, and one of the, you know, what we're trying to do with this map really is nothing more than just something different than what we've shown you in the prior alternatives. And there are some rationale here for the changes that we did make, but we're trying to just come up with an alternative that is different, to give you something to consider. So most of the Salmon Falls area goes into Division 5. Division 5 maintains its current territory south of Highway 50, and it even picks up some territory south of Highway 50 using, I believe that is Silver Valley Parkway, White, and maybe White Rock Road. And then north of Highway 50, again, Silver Valley Parkway is used to divide El Dorado Hills from Division 5 into Division 4. So Division 4 picks up a lot of territory. Mostly, I think this is in the Serrano neighborhood. And so that's El Dorado Hills. Division 2 maintains most of the territory that it had south of 50 in the western part of the county. It picks up a fair amount of what is currently Division 4 north of 50. This is in Shingle Springs. It maintains that rescue area division boundary. And then moving east here, you'll see that Division 1, as it does with a number of the, I think all of the prior alternatives, it picks up south of County and Outingdale, and it also expands over beyond its current boundary in Diamond Springs, El Dorado, to pick up some population in those communities. And this might be one of the more favorable changes here in this particular map in terms of preserving the Diamond Springs, El Dorado area, because it really incorporates almost all of Diamond Springs, El Dorado into Division 1. And then going east again, you'll see Division 3 picks up even more of the area north of Highway 50 in the Camino area in order to achieve that population parity. So Highway 50 is used as a dividing division boundary line for quite a ways beyond what it was historically or under our current division boundaries. So those are the changes. You can see that this particular division, it spreads the recycled customers, again, you know, between 2, 4, and 5. There's wastewater customers in every division here, but the fewest in Division 3. Division 1 picks up a fair number of wastewater customers here in the Diamond Springs, El Dorado area. But in terms of voter disruption, again, you have a number of customers down here in the southern part of the county that were in Division 2 that would be going to Division 1. It moves a small number of Division 2 customers here that would be going to Division 5. And then some customers in this area. Going 3 to 1 is not as impactful, but I think there's an area here where you have some customers going from Division 2 to Division 1. So that would be this area here. Now let me just show you show you what the population distribution looks like of alternative 4. And here we see all of the divisions achieve the 1% target except for Division 1, which is slightly over the target. But we don't have any of the divisions under fairly close distribution among that alternative. So back to the map, and I'll pause to see if there are any questions or comments.
Could you go back to map 1 for me, please? 1A, excuse me, yeah. I may be mistaken, this is the third iteration of this I've had to go through since, but that's not a whole lot different than it was 20 years ago, if you want to know the truth. So, you know, and I guess my comment would be that as in general, with the exception of Brian's Division 3, the most of the agricultural area and recreation area lies within Division 1 and portions of Division 3. And so, and again, I had Outingdale until the last iteration, and I had some of the stuff, to me, just off the top of my head before more deep analysis, that would seem to be the one that would make more sense to me.
Interesting how it goes back. Sorry. Yeah, interesting observation that it goes back to.
Where it was, yeah.
And to your point about the distribution of agricultural customers, that is true, and it's largely true of almost all of the draft alternatives, that most of our agricultural customers remain in Divisions 3 and 1, and some in Division 2.
predominance of them are in 1 and 3.
Director Dwyer.
Thank you. Good presentation, Brian. I know there's been a ton of work that has gone into these alternatives, and there is no perfect solution. But trying to minimize the damage, if you will, while maintaining the cohesiveness of communities that identify as communities. I think this one, 1A, is probably my favorite, with the caveat that it would really be good to be able to keep Cameron Park as a cohesive community of interest. But there's probably not a possible way to do that without sacrificing Diamond Springs or some other community. So, good job. Thank you very much.
If I could just follow on that comment, because I did want to say and make sure that, and I think the board understands, but also the public, that every single change we make to a line requires another change, and sometimes another change and another change. And so I wish it was as simple as, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense, let's just keep Cameron Park. But if we do that, we've got to do something else. And it turns out there's really not that many changes that you can make to our boundaries that don't in some way have a negative impact on another community. That's just the reality, and there's really very few places that we can tweak without having significant ramifications. So we tried to, do the best we can and give you 4 alternatives that are reasonably that achieve the population equality mandate. Each one of the 4 alternatives do that. Some to a greater extent than others, but all 4 of them, I think, are within our tolerance. All of them, have some changes to our service-related communities of interest, but we've taken into account community regions and many of the other things that we've talked about in drawing these lines. But each of them has pros and cons.
Well, I think, too, also, the idea of looking forward to where the growth potential is to minimize the future impact is another very positive thing. And say, why would we put ourselves through this again in 10 years when we know if we can make the boundary adjustments now that anticipate that growth, then it'll make the boundary adjustments 10 years from now that much easier.
Yeah, and great comment. We have looked at this. We looked even staff. We've looked at the growth, the projected growth during the 2011 redistricting, and we've mapped how that growth was actually occurred and what population impact it had. So we've considered that, and then we've looked at the anticipated growth now based upon the requests for connection and the development plans submitted to our Development Services Division. So, shout out to all of our staff for the work that they've done to help us understand that and understand how those population changes might occur. I do want to, just before we conclude, recognize again Jan Wolf and Rachel Sarge, who have done the bulk of the work in creating and improving the mapping products that you've seen today. Just a ton of work has gone into this. So I want to express publicly my appreciation to them for getting us to this point with the adoption map deadline coming up. And so I just wanted to say that how tremendous they've been. I also am very grateful to Jesse and Karen Cross and our customer services division as well, Jenny Downey, for helping us develop the public portal that I showed you today. This was something that we weren't sure we were going to be able to do, but I think it's turned out to be a great success, and I hope it's the public finds it to be a useful tool as well, since there's not a practical way to share big maps anymore with the public. So.
You just have to have a lot of memory on your computer. Yes. Director Day.
I'm going to concur with a lot of people here. And I concur with George and Pat. I think that 1A makes a lot of sense. And I want to concur with Brian. I know how much work has gone into this, a tremendous amount, and how your eyes can get crossed staring at the computer screen hour after hour, and all these lines and stuff. So again, kudos to everybody. I think you guys have done a really good job. And we'll see where the public comment takes us. And but I think we're in a really good place.
Yeah, the one comment that I'd like to make is, you know, the importance of the redistricting, and if anybody paid attention to the state and to what's happening in California, which I was paying a lot of attention to when you map my district, you did a great job on putting that portal available, because it's the communities of interest that really are important, and that increases transparency. So people have a say on who they want to represent them. And I'm not saying EID is lesser of that, but definitely people are paying attention to this as we are more attached to Zooming from home, and as we're more attached to the digital world. And it's just, you know, magnificent job on doing this. I know it's hard work. Thank goodness we have lots of memory on our computers and GIS systems to help do this. I'm familiar with maybe 30 years ago, as Director Osborne says he doesn't want to do it again, but I remember just loading up a PC and trying to get a GIS engineering terminal working when I worked at East Bay Mud, and that was the same thing, as we were doing these things not knowing where we were going, but now it's so much better now, and great job. And I like 1A. I have to look at it a little bit more closely, but it definitely seems to me that with this being an election year for 2 and 4, there might not be that much of a shift, but I see a little bit of a shift on new voters for areas that we didn't represent, and we may lose a few, but that's the way it is. Just kind of like it's a democracy, and we need to do it that way. Thank you very much.
Before I wrap up, I did want to just note, all of the, the presentation, everything's available on the redistricting webpage. The public can go there. The interactive maps link is live. We'll try and get, the word out a little bit more on that to make sure the public is aware. But we are scheduled next to meet again on February 28th for a public hearing to consider the draft maps alternative.
Does Director Veerkamp want to say anything? I'm sorry.
I do, Lori. Yeah, no, thank you, Lori and Brian. The biggest is just thank you. I mean, it's such great use of technology, and we have that capability to share with our public the presentation, which was outstanding. Brian, Karen, Rachel, all of you, you've done an outstanding job. 1A is making the most sense to me as well, and I'm hoping we get some more public comment, and we'll hopefully be ready to move this along. But great job, and I think everybody's comments were very appropriate. So thank you.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that. So, I'm hearing a number of folks have a preference, and you'll note that during today's presentation, we didn't have a recommended map. Today was all about presenting the alternatives and getting some feedback. And so we'll go back and look at the alternatives. I would encourage the board or public to share their suggestions with us, and we'll bring back some alternatives. Probably that, I haven't heard anything today that suggests that we make any drastic changes, but I do want to, hear from the public on this over the course of the coming weeks. So we'll have a public hearing on February 28th to consider the maps, and then we're looking for final adoption of the district's division map during the second meeting in March. That should allow us to meet the statutory deadline in April.
Thank you very much. And this is for the public. Please get into the portal if you have a preference. I think it's beneficial for everybody to use these tools, and we can receive your input. Thank you.
Are you ready for public comment? ready for you, Michael.
Just want to say that I hate the alternative 2 and I like alternative 1A.
Noted. Yes, that was, for the record, that was Michael Rafferty. Are there any members of the public, any additional members of the public wishing to speak on workshop item number 7? All you have to do is press your raise your hand button at the bottom of the screen, or if you're participating via phone, you can press *9 on your telephone keypad, and that will raise your hand on this side, and we can allow you to speak. So *9 on telephone keypad, or you raise your hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. President Anzini, it does not appear there are any additional members of the public wishing to speak on workshop item number 7.
Okay, well, this was a workshop item. It will come back at the next meeting after we receive public input. And thank you very much for your presentation. We will now move on to information items. Item number 9, item 8 was removed and will be delivered at the next meeting. So item number 9, engineering.
Hold on, I want to. The PowerPoints aren't on this, so that's what I'm doing. It's not named this thing. It's called a fire project.
All right, good morning, board members. I'm Kerry Muchler, the senior civil engineer, overseeing the flumes 4, 5, and 6, and 30 restoration projects. Coming forward to just kind of give you an update of where we're at. Next slide. So previous board actions have been the declaration of the emergency and the awarding of the contracts to Siblin Reed and to GHD for both the design and construction. And then we were last with you on December 13th for the last update. And of course, we've had quite a bit of activity up there since that date. So next slide. Again, just an overview of where we're working. You can see Flume 30 there on the left, just around Whitehall, above Whitehall, and then Flumes 4, 5, and 6, just a little bit downstream of what we call our Kybers Diversion Dam. And the part in the orange is where the fire burned. Next slide. So the status of Flumes 4, 5, and 6. We began resuming work on January 7th. That was initially done just to plow the roads. We've kind of taken these projects in kind of steps, not knowing how our weather was going to be. So the initial goal we had was, not knowing if we were going to get more snow, was just to pull all the equipment off. We were paying at the time around $300,000 a month for equipment. So, you know, our first goal was just to get into it, and if we were going to get weather, we were going to get that equipment out. Luckily, we've been able to have some very good weather, so we kept working. That has led to most of the excavations on Flume 4 is complete. Our trickiest parts are done, the parts that we were most worried about. All of our hazardous material has been removed, and we've stockpiled all the soil that we're going to need. That was our most expensive piece of equipment, was to make that engineered soil, and that one was running us about $50,000 a month. So getting that off was a big goal right there. Flumes 5 and 6 are ready to dig and pour. And I'll show you more of that, what we mean by that in some pictures. We're still got a little bit of what we call the flume sections on 5. And again, some pictures will explain the 2 divisions of that part of the project. And currently, we're expecting water update, depending on weather, is somewhere in April. Next slide. So this is what we encountered when we started our plowing operations. As you can see, we have about 1.5 to 2 foot of snow that we got through. So
What slowed you guys down?
just a little bit. It's not, so yeah, we were able to get back into the sites, which was great. Get everything plowed, and we can go to the next slide. So this is Flume 4. This is when we hiked in. You can see the date there on January 5th. We kind of went in, hiked in just to see where we were at. The one on the right is kind of the end of our excavation phase on the bottom. You can see this one is a tiered excavation, which is, we're trying to remove least soil as we can. But that bottom portion was an old slide area, and we ended up going down about 30 feet, and we're building that up. The good part of that is we're doing that with the MSE wall. So it's a short section. It'll come up pretty quick with that. The very bottom of the picture, you can see some form work. I got another picture that'll show a little bit better. But as where that piece of equipment is, that's the last part of our excavation. But we are about 90% sure of what we're going to get there, and we have very little concern. But we've got to build all the rest of that up before we can get into that and dig that out. Next slide. So the last time I was with you, I showed the picture on the left, our big goose egg boulder there. Then we have just some stages. We've framed it up, we put the rebar in, and about a week ago, we poured all the concrete. About 50 yards of concrete went into that. Next slide. We'll show you kind of that operation. This is the pumper truck on the left. The concrete trucks back up to that. They dump the concrete in. You can kind of see the line going down the hill there. And then on the picture on the right, it continues on. It's a few hundred feet of pumping that we do. And we, filled all those form sections in there. And then you can see at the bottom, that's the base for the MSE wall. So we were waiting for that concrete to get just a few days of cure in there. We rip the forms off, and then we can start building up. That will be a joint between the MSE wall and the concrete. And that's the tricky part that we have to do. We have to make sure that's pretty tight to make sure everything works like it's supposed to. Next slide. Flume 5. You can see on Flume 5, this is where we left off on December 5th. We were just bringing in the imported fill. The picture on the right is when we removed all the plastic. It looks muddy, but it was really only about a ½ an inch at most deep. We really did save a lot of this site, and so we were able to rework it relatively quickly. Since that time, we have got all the fill in here. This is the dig out section. This is what we will dig out, form, and do those U-shaped canals. Next slide. This slide shows you the other portion of Flume 5. You can see on the left, this is coming out of what we call the tunnel. It's a little CMP, corrugated metal pipe. That orange markings are the footings. Those are the concrete footings that get dug. It will support the U-shaped flume in this section. So we won't have a canal section, it'll be a flume section. It'll just be freestanding until we get over to the earth, and then we'll transition back into a canal section. So these footings were actually poured on Friday. So more concrete work keep going up. This week, where that excavator is, or the digging right there, you can see where it was digging one of the footing sections. We are getting ready to form the transition from the tunnel section into the U-shaped, and all that stuff will get hopefully poured this week. Next slide. Flume 6 was in pretty good condition as before we left. This is what it was on the upper picture. You can see this is all ready to dig. That's a drain inlet that will carry, there's a water course up above that. It'll carry all that water underneath the flume or canal section and take it downhill. And that's just an aerial view, kind of giving you a view of the scope of what we're doing with. That orange fencing is about the limits of it. It's not very long. So that one's ready to go. Hopefully in about the first part of March, we will be doing the dig out sections and moving forward with getting the rebar in and then getting the concrete placed. Next slide. So this is what we're going, this is again a picture I showed from last time, but this is what we're after. The U-shaped canals with, some of them will have a bench, some won't, but this is just the overall design. Next slide. So Flume 30,
Terry,
again.
I got a question.
Oh, yep, sorry.
One of the big advantages of doing the U-shaped canal and the bench was maintenance and being able to use the bench to remove materials or get access to. How do we treat the spots that don't have the bench there? Do we have to come from the opposite direction, or?
If we have to do stuff, that's where some of our stuff is done by helicopter. We helicopter
Oh.
everything in.
Okay. Thank
So.
Sorry I asked.
We try to get, where we can. And again, I want to thank SPI and the Forest Service, because without them, we wouldn't have had the access to get into 4, 5, and 6. They were great in dealing with us and helping us get to where we are. Otherwise, yeah, we would have been fighting over trying to get some big helicopters to lift all that stuff in. So let's see, Flume 30. Again, we were able to start again with plowing of the roads on this January 7th. We got all the hazardous materials are out. The aggregate base rock for the access road actually completed last week. So we are now all ready to get and start moving equipment, bigger equipment and stuff that we need to get the actual flume section rebuilt. Wall B, and I'll show you some pictures of that in a minute, did get some pretty substantial damage from all the storms. That has been repaired. And then we've done all the scaling as a result of the fire above the canal sections. And again, this one also has an expected water date of around April. Next slide. So we weren't able to get in to take pictures of Flume 30, but this was the SPI yard on the left. And you kind of get a size of those tires. Again, we're dealing with 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow. The picture I like on the right shows you exactly how we build an access road. There's 4 layers there. We got the dirt layer that we've got to bring in. We put a layer of rock down, and then this fabric may or may not be used. It lessens the amount of the 4th layer, the aggregate base, but if we get too steep, that rock just slides off, so we go to a thicker rock section. So it helps in getting some of that placement, but that's what it takes to build an all-weather access road to get to our sites.
Is that stuff called petromat?
What's that?
Is that layer called petromat?
I am not sure what that is.
Okay,
called.
I've been dealing with some asphalt people, and I just wondered if that was what they were talking about.
Next slide. This was the Wall B section. So when CAL FIRE came in, they blazed in a fire break. This contributed to this erosion right here. When the storms come in, we couldn't get everything. We thought we had everything worked out. Turns out we didn't. The storm was a little bigger than we expected, and it eroded all this portion of Wall B. The left is the repair. We got in pretty quick with that, got some more rock in there. We took care of the fire break section, so in case, that was one of the main goals, in case weather settled back in, that we could get, to make sure that we diverted all that water so we didn't have a recurrence of this incident. So we had that all in place and ready to go. Next slide. This was some of the, like I said, the scaling that we did above what will be our canal section. You can see the fire burn out. You got a couple of guys there on the left taking out some of the stumps. Then we come in on these super steep parts and we put the C350. This is permanent erosion control. It lasts for a very long time and it prevents the erosion from coming up or from rain from eroding underneath. At the same time, it does allow for some growth underneath. It takes a lot longer than what we use for the jute fabric, but because of the steepness of these slopes, we have to go with the 350 to get that stabilized.
The jute is the roping, right? So what is the heavier?
This stuff is a tighter weave,
Okay,
but it also has some plastic components in there.
all right, so it doesn't disintegrate as fast.
Correct. Well, it won't. It kind of stays put, and we've used that throughout, but because it's so tight and it's a kind of a different fabric, instead of naturally going away in about 3 years, this stuff lasts about 5 to 10.
Okay,
So it gives us that little longer period to just let more of Mother Nature come in, but after we're done, that plastic layer does stay secured on the site.
okay, thanks.
It's somewhat water permeable, so you can get some top
Oh,
coat.
yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It allows it, and it allows certain plants to come up, and the more again, it takes longer, but the more it, dissolves or erodes or whatever, we get more plants, but it takes longer, so it allows that establishment to be more secure. So this is the digging out. We've started, we're able to get one piece of equipment back in here to start digging out, getting ready for forming. This is the 60-foot section that we removed to get our flow line established. And since this picture was taken, we've got all the drain lines in and everything ready for getting the concrete footings to get placed or get the concrete pour ready. And this just shows, the other picture on the right shows you just kind of the extent of where the flume is, or the new canal section will go. And the picture on the left is the very right side. That's that side, part of the section. Next slide. So coming up to the board, we are going to have some change orders as a result of the fire. The biggest one's going to be our hazardous material removal. We're just getting those receipts in. Since I put this slide together, we've gotten some of the numbers, and it looks like it's going to be just a little less of 500,000. Right now, we're sitting around 450, and we'll be coming back to the board. The way it's looking now will probably be the first one in March to get that approved. The extra tree removal looks like that one's going to come under the general manager's signature authority. That one is looking to be around, I believe we're sitting around 80,000 for that one. So that was some good news too. When you look at the number of trees we ended removing on 30 versus what this change order, this is a really good deal. For 300 trees in the contract was about the same price, and now we were up somewhere, I think we're up close to 1,000 that we ended up removing. So our subcontractors and our contractors really did work with us on that, and I want to thank them for that. We also have some deductive change orders that we're going to process through, and that's just because of the nature of the contract and the way it's changed. So for example, we had in the contract to do demolition. Well, the Caldor fire took care of that for us, a large portion of that. So we get a credit with that, but hazardous removal accounts for the plus side, and we're doing that to keep what was Caldor fire related completely separate from what we had originally contracted with, so that we can go back to insurance and FEMA and seek reimbursements for that, and it's a clear line with that. We do have some fuzzy areas because we did have to do some demolition, so it's working with Sybil and Reed on those numbers, and we have a meeting coming up, it's either this week or next, to kind of start nailing some of those down. But it looks like we're coming, we're going to be definitely on the plus side, but definitely within what we have on our contingency. So that's the good news. We've got a really good contractors up the hill, and they're really good working with us and getting the work done and in a timely and an economical manner. Next slide. So the upcoming work, we've got some excavations to finish on flumes 4 and 30. We've got about 3,000 cubic yards of soil to move onto some sites. We're going to shotcrete the new canal sections, and then our substantial completion is the flow of water. It's not our final completion. We will have to see where we come in with the work remaining to whether or not we can get in and finish during the summer, or if we're going to have to hold off to the next outage, reestablish those roadways, and then come in and finish. If you remember, the roadways actually we filled in the canals to get to the sites. So there's more to be determined on how we get done and where we get done, and working with when we flow water and the like. Next slide. Any other questions or comments?
Director Dwyer?
Yes, Carrie, again, as you well know, the importance of flowing the water is kind of premier for two reasons. One is to service our customers when in the high demand time, and two is to generate power that's revenue for the district. So, yeah, thank you very much. I know there's some engineering on the fly that has to be done, and thanks for being fast on your feet and making it happen.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Director Day?
Well, just a blessing and a curse with the weather, because it's been
Yeah.
awesome weather to be out there working. And, we were all scared in December. I remember, oh no, boy, if these storms continue, but it's nice that they didn't, but it's not nice, so.
Yeah, at this point, as long as it doesn't snow, we can usually handle, and I should knock on wood, right? As long as it rains in a controlled, nice manner.
Yeah.
Not like it was given to us in December and such. We can manage some of that, the 1/4-inch rains are good. Kind of helps with keeping some of our dust control.
What if we get a miracle March?
That's
we
a good
get
question.
Some of those rivers.
So there is a point that we call, if we can get all the earthwork done where we're all built up, then we're able to tent everything and continue work. That milestone is somewhere in mid to the later end of March. So if we can get to that point, then yeah, we can bring in pop-ups or fist queen or whatever it takes to cover everything up and still get the concrete trucks, as long as, again, it's rain, not snow, that gets hit. If we get snow, then we can't get the trucks in. So yeah,
Okay.
we're looking to that, and every week is a different story depending on what we get progress, sometimes better than we expect, sometimes we take a step back. So
Director Osborne?
The pictures don't really depict the territory that you're working in.
no.
I've been through part of that and walked some of that for a variety of reasons, and it's steep, and like I say, it really doesn't depict what you're doing, and you guys are doing a hell of a good job, and we got a hell of a good contractor, so keep up the good work and get the water going.
Will do.
Okay.
Great. Director Veerkamp?
I would just echo those comments. Again, very familiar with the terrain up there, and it's almost an impossible task, and they're doing a great job. So keep it up and let's get her flowing. Don't rule out something in March. Just Mother Nature's thrown us a couple curves. We could use that curve, but on the other hand, we got to get the job done. So
Thank you. General Manager?
Just a quick note, Kerry and his team's doing a great job on the restoration. We have another team set up to do financial recovery. Director Dwyer's comment about generation, Dan and Gibson are preparing information of what the lost generation is that we can recover because of the business loss insurance. So there's a whole team between construction and, you know, tree removal and financial, and they're all doing a great job, and I'm real pleased with their effort.
Love seeing those tables. Thank you very much for your report. Job well done, and I'm looking forward to a tour.
Yes,
All right.
this week.
Thank you. Any public comment?
President Anzini, at this time, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on information item number 9.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Now we'll move to the action items on our agenda. We'll start with action item number 10.
Move one.
Okay.
Second.
It's been
Director
moved
Veerkamp will second, I
and-
believe I can.
Okay, Director Veerkamp said he didn't have a chance to pop in there, but it's been motioned and seconded by Director Osborne and Director Dwyer to move approval of finance item number 10. Any public comment?
It does not appear at this time there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 10. Would you like me to call for the vote?
Yes.
How do you vote? Division 1,
Aye.
Division 2,
Aye.
Division 3,
Aye.
Division 5,
Aye.
Division 4,
Aye.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
Okay. We will move to action item number 11, under operations. It's not going to be that easy for you.
As I was halfway here, I was wondering. Good morning, members of the board, Madam President. My name is Noel Russell. I'm a construction and maintenance supervisor, drinking water. Here to talk to you today about a funding request and patch paving contract award. Go to the next slide, please. So this is all about drinking water service lines. The last part of the straw goes from the main to the meter. We're going into our third year proactively replacing these now. So just as a quick overview, there's almost 43,000 water service lines, a little over 5,600 recycled. Most of those are 1 inch in size, in diameter. We repaired and replaced 635 service lines in 2021. And as we continue, the leak rate far exceeds the national average, which, the long game here is to turn that around. So that continues to increase. We still have over 24,000 polyethylene services in the ground, and that's the material that we shared with you that's failing. So 15 to 30 years, which is in the view of someone like myself and hopefully you, is not acceptable. So we're replacing them all with polyethylene coated copper tubing, which is proven to be a far superior and better material for longevity. Next slide, please. So the long-term objective, reduce failure rate to at or below national average, and we're doing that through proactive replacement. So we're finding all the hot spots through the district's database using about 10 years past data. So the areas of the highest concentration we're hitting first, and then we'll kind of move down the line, and that that target will change and move a little bit as the years go by. So next slide, please. So the current subdivision we're working in is Stonegate Village, and some examples of some of the stuff we do for community outreach. We work with Jesse's group. For this one, we sent an advisory letter directly to homeowners, tells them about the scope of the project, impact to customers, details, PM contact info. We post some of them on the website, depending on where it's appropriate. Some of them with a homeowners association, they like to take the lead in the notification process, and they've partnered with us. It's really been a great program. El Dorado County for Stonegate asked that we put some advisory signage at the entrances to the community, just to kind of give folks a heads up that they're going to see a work area in addition to our individual traffic control signage for each work site. So for when the direct effect comes to the customer, when they are going to experience a service interruption, when we do have to replace their water service line or do associated work, we do door-to-door notification 24 hours in advance. It's worked pretty well for us. Next slide, please.
How long typically is the interruption of service?
So we'll just take Stonegate Village, for example, since that's where we're currently working. So in that particular subdivision, there are no valves on most of the service lines at the main. So our customers will often experience two separate outages. And one will be for when we have to isolate the main and install all those valves to each of the service lines that we've exposed ahead of time using the Vector trucks that we recently got. Thank you. And then when we're going to replace their individual service line, that'll be the secondary outage. Typically, it's less than about 2 hours, unless we get into something that we run into some difficulty, for example, really rocky soil or utility conflict, things like that, or if it's a great span of distance from the main to the meter. Sometimes we'll have to run an open trench. We've got an example of that coming up here in just a minute. So we keep them as short as we can, minimize impact. So we started this thing up in 2020. During that year, we replaced 583 service lines. In 2021, we set a goal of 600, and we exceeded that by 33. In 22, this year we're going to shoot for 800 with some additional resources that have come into play. I think we can reach it. We're going to do our best. 5-year CIP budget of $26,610,000. And for 22 CIP budgets, $4,850,000. Next slide, please. So just a quick example of some of the stuff that we run into. So we talked about utility conflict last time I spoke with you folks, and that's just another example of what we're running into. So we're sharing the ground with other utilities, and in a lot of cases, when those utilities were all installed, the appropriate separation between those utilities was not established. So now, mostly for safety purposes, to protect the utilities and the employees that are working on them, we get eyes on before we do anything. And an example of that is on the top left. You can see the water service line going vertically, crossing the primary power, and the orange is a natural gas main. That's done using hydro excavation equipment. On the lower left-hand side, that's one of the 2 trucks that we use for this purpose. We prefer a trenchless replacement method, and the next slide shows you that. But in this particular one on the right, there's 3 pictures where we replaced a water service line from the main to the meter using what we refer to as the open cut method. For a number of reasons, it was not feasible to use the trenchless method in this example. It just kind of shows what the crews have to kind of deal with and then what they leave behind. On the upper right is after they've backfilled it and made a temporary repair to the rolled curb and gutter with asphalt and temporarily repaired the roadway. And then on the bottom picture shows the rolled curb and gutter that had been replaced along with, the gravel driveway and such. And the asphalt restoration will come secondary to the concrete to leave a cleaner product. Next slide, please. I'm sorry.
Go back to the last slide. So in the center picture, the blue line is our new water line, so it's the plastic coated.
That's correct. That's polyethylene coated copper K-type tubing.
So it does have some degree of flexibility?
Yes, it does.
Interesting,
Yes,
okay.
it does. Yeah, it has actually more than you might imagine. Yeah, copper's fairly soft. This just kind of is an illustration of what a trenchless replacement method looks like, where we insert a cable into the existing service line, and we pull in the new water service line through it. It has a blade and a spreader on it that turns that existing service line into a conduit for the new one, so it adds a level of protection over time. Next slide. We have not been without challenges. We've had some turnover due to attrition and other factors, a lot of recruitment and a lot of training. So, we build that into our workflow, but it does slow us down a little bit. We've fortunately had a good safety record in 2021 with a lot of new recruits, so I think we're doing something right. Like everyone else, we're having supply chain issues. We've been able to stay ahead of it. We haven't gotten backed into a corner, but it's something that we continue to face along with everyone else. County encroachment permit requirements and restrictions, we've actually kind of struck a little bit of a partnership with the county, and we're working together now. Things are really going well with our relationship with those folks. And of course, the COVID-19 impacts with exclusion time and safety measures with limited vehicle occupancy when the outbreak stuff was going on. You know, that created some inefficiencies that slowed us down a little bit. And also with, you know, delays in recruitment and training with COVID. Next slide, please. So for 2021, we met our goal and exceeded our goal with the 600 water service lines, costing a little over $3.7 million with a budgeted almost $4 million. Next slide, please. So for 2022, we're asking for $4,745,545 to help us reach our 800 goal. Next slide. So for patch paving, as you saw on the slide before, we have to tear into the roadway to get a lot of the stuff done. So that includes grinding, cold planing, saw cutting, paving, slurry sealing, traffic line painting, all the things you have to do to put the road back together after we get done making our mess and cleaning it up. We solicited bids and we got 4 responsive bidders. On the next slide, they're listed, I believe.
I noticed in the write-up, you talked about the more proactively reaching out to contractors to try to shake the tree a little more and get more turnout.
We did. We asked a number of them to show up. I forget how many showed up. I think there were 8 or 9 that showed up to the pre-bid meeting, and then 4 actually went through with the bidding process.
Good.
Lowest responsive and responsible bidder is Joe Vicini Incorporated. And for the whole package, they bidded us at $1,386,750. And the other came in, as you can see, higher.
It's good to see that 3 of them are relatively within the similar range, so that's always healthy.
Good, healthy competition.
Yeah.
So board actions, option 1, to award a contract to Joe Vicini Incorporated in the not to exceed amount of $1,386,750 for asphalt patch paving and associated pavement restoration work and for a 1-year period, and then authorize the general manager to extend the contract for 2 additional single-year period if it's in the district's best interest, and authorize additional funding of $970,725 for asphalt patch paving, $320,000 for concrete remediation, $60,000 for backfill compaction testing as required by county, $983,744 for materials and supplies, and $2,411,077 for capitalized labor, for a total funding request of $4,745,546 for the water service line replacement project 2022.01. That is a mouthful. I would recommend that we go with option 1 and continue this important work.
Thank you.
I'll move option.
And the race is
Second.
on. Who wants first and who wants second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have Veer Camp also was in there, so
That's
for
all right.
action item
Who was
number
that?
Third.
11, who moved option 1?
Director Dwyer first, he motioned, Director Day seconded, and Director Veerkamp was just helpful. All right. Are there any public comments regarding this motion?
President Anzini, at this time, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 11. Option 1 moved by Director Dwyer and seconded by Director Day. Would you like me to call for the vote?
Yes.
How do you vote, Division 1?
Aye.
Division 2?
Aye.
Division 3?
Aye.
Division 5?
Aye.
Division 4?
Aye.
Divisions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
What's a typical PSI after the meter or at the, where it
After
goes
the
into a
meter?
house?
We have 220 pressure zones, so that goes anywhere from 40 to 50 pounds on up to several hundred, depending on where you're located in the county and what
In a
pressure regulator
residential?
station you're near, in residential.
Oh, okay. Well, what's recommended for at the, okay, yeah,
So for after your regulator, it's 55 PSI.
okay,
So,
Thank you.
so it's
That's coming into the
55
meter.
PSA, PSI,
yeah.
After your pressure regulator, yes.
right. People ask me that question, why is it always men?
Well, I may have misunderstood. I thought you were talking about pressure coming into the meter.
Well, I kind of both, it was good.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item number 12 in engineering.
Good morning, John Money, Senior Civil Engineer, and this morning we're here to review a proposed design contract. Is it up or not? Proposed design contract for the Sly Park Intertie Improvements Project. Just quick reference, so my meter is 130 on the street, and I think we were at 50 at our house.
Okay.
I'm going to cover that in this as well, so you'll be well versed by the time we're done. Next slide, please. So again, the Sly Park Intertie project has been around for quite some years. Most recently, it was included in the 2022 to 2026 CIP program, and we were before the board back on December 13th to authorize a resolution for grant funding for the project. Go ahead, next slide. The Sly Park Intertie project or pipeline was originally constructed in 1978 to alleviate water shortages due to the 76 and 77 drought. Unfortunately, at the time it was constructed under emergency conditions. And so that pipeline it's a non-standard pipe, and it has no non-standard external coating and no internal coating. So it has not fared well over the years. It's had substantial leaks, and then basically it became unusable in 2013. It had limited use prior to that. The SPI is a critical link between Res 1 and Res A, potable water that is. And again, it's really been identified by staff as a critical link between the Project 184 and Jenkinson Lake water supplies, especially given our increased wildfire risk over the past years and ongoing drought.
So it lasted 35 years,
Ish.
okay?
That is not our goal. So next slide, please. Just a general overview of our transmission lines in the district. So again, on the far right there, you can see the Reservoir 1 and Reservoir A water treatment plants. Those are both fed by Project 184 and Jenkinson Lake, respectively. On the north side of the district, we have the EDM1 and EDM2 pipelines you've heard about so much that convey water all the way down to El Dorado Hills, actually. And then on the south side, the red line is the Pleasant Oak main, which helps convey water down the south side of the district. That yellow line in between is what we rely on right now. That is the Camino conduit. So currently, when Reservoir 1 is taken out of production, water is treated at Reservoir A. It flows down through the Camino conduit to Reservoir 2, and then is pumped back up to service the watershed right there at Reservoir 1. The green line, again, is the Sly Park Intertie right there at the head of our water supplies. Go ahead, next slide, please. Here's a blow-up of the Sly Park Intertie, again, originating at, either one. On this picture, it's on the top side is Reservoir 1, going down. It crosses Weber Creek twice, and then Clear Creek, I can't get that out, twice, terminating at Reservoir A. I did include a small graphic there that's really important for this project, and that shows the elevation changes over the pipeline grade. So there's about 700 feet in elevation difference between Reservoir 1 and the first big dip you see right there, which is the North Fork of Weber Creek. That equates to about 310 PSI, which I do not have at my street or anywhere near my house. And that really triggers a whole nother level of design effort. You're up and above the standards, and it really requires kind of significant knowledge about pipe materials and how we transition to that higher pressure class pipe and how we accommodate that moving forward. So I just wanted to point that out. Go ahead, next slide, please. So as a precursor to the current design effort, the district finalized a technical memorandum of rehabilitation alternatives last fall. And that kind of took several smaller reports, kind of bundled them and kind of gave us some focus of the overall design and recommendations moving forward. So again, the biggest change in that is that we would like to use the slide park intertype. Historically, it's only been used as gravity flow from Res 1 to convey water again down to the Jenkinson area. We'd like to incorporate a pump station into that so that at Res A, so then that gives us redundancy for both water treatment plants. It also gives us the ability to take Res A offline for very still brief periods of time, but at least allows us to take it offline. Right now, that's a continuous flow water treatment plant. Based on flow, we're looking at a 24 or 30 inch, or the previous alternatives. Likely that'll be a 24-inch pipe. And then it also allows us to optimize our flows during the different periods of the year. So again, water flows, at this time during the year, we treat water at Res A, and that flows all the way down to El Dorado Hills. So this gives us some flexibility for our source water as well. And then the last criteria on there was this is a little bit less critical now than when it was brought up previously because power generation rates have gone down a little bit, but looking at the potential to save water in our Jenkins Lake portfolio and then use more of the 184 for hydro generation. So it just gives us, again, it gives us options on the uphill side of the district. Go ahead, next slide, please. So again, I threw this picture in here. This is a current repair so portions of the pipeline as it leaves Res A going up to Slight Park Hills is still in service. This is an ongoing repair, and again, it just shows what we're dealing with that existing pipeline. The coating is basically done, and you can see 2 pinholes right there that have just worked their way through the pipe. Again, going back to the rehabilitation alternatives, again, one of the primary concerns is, again, the high pressure that I alluded to earlier. There's the 40 to 60, again, the standard residential pressure to kind of give you an order of magnitude of the pressure we're seeing. The existing pipeline is not usable. Again, the coatings are pretty much gone, and the advanced corrosion in there really leaves the structural ability of that pipe to house any kind of rehabilitation methods in question. For that reason, again, structural liners, alternatively on large pipe diameters, you can line those. However, it's questionable because of the high pressure. The second thing is that it's in a high threat or a high fire area. And recently, due to the fires in Oroville or whatnot, there's increased concern that when polymers or any kind of resins are in those high temperatures, that they have the potential to leach into the system. So really, it limits us down to steel pipe and ductile iron as our alternatives to rehabilitate or replace the pipe. Go ahead, next slide, please. So moving forward with the RFP for the design services, we issued, we really categorized 4 tasks and issued this to, as an RFP to all our consultants. The tasks were broken into a basic design report, again, to take the recommendations of that tech memo, to confirm those and package that into a solid design moving forward. Task 2 will take the recommendations of that basis of design report and provide intermediate and then final design plans and specs for bid. Task 3 is regulatory and environmental permit support. So again, that is not environmental permitting, that is providing figures and engineering calcs to assist in permitting efforts. And then bid support. And the reason we really frame this up front is, again, that we can get kind of apples to apples bids among the consultants, because everybody's going to attack it in a little bit different way according to how they do business. Next slide, please. So that RFP went out in November of 2021. We had initially 8 design firms attend a pre-qualification conference. And eventually 3 firms submitted a statement of qualifications. Based on those the statement of qualifications, we held additional in-person interviews and then asked for cost proposals and ended up with cost proposals submitted by two firms. Go ahead, next slide. So here's where we get to a little bit of the difficulty of the bid process. So we did receive two bids. One of those bids was non-responsive. It was emailed after the allotted time or bid deadline. However, we did do although we can't consider that as a bid, we are able to do a cursory review, and we found that the hours are on par between the two bids, and that the second bid had substantially higher average hourly billing rates. So regardless, we feel that Waterworks would have provided a better value to the district. Again, we broke out those 4 tasks. We gave all of the firms the ability to include alternatives in addition to those tasks based on their synergy with additional firms and additional items of scope that maybe we missed. And as part of Waterworks, they did include an additional scope of $38,000 up and beyond those 4 basic tasks for corrosion engineering services. And we're recommending including that into their final contract. Again, moving forward for additional efforts. So we will be pursuing a full mitigated neg deck on the environmental side with the agencies shown below. It's envisioned that all of those permits will be acquired using our on-call consultants. Our environmental staff will issue those contracts and move those permits forward as we complete the design process. Total right now, based on past projects, environmental staff is estimating $200,000-ish to complete this effort. Next slide, please. Additional services, so we will have some additional services as we move forward. We're going to work with the design consultant. Our plan would be to work with the design consultant to really nail down what they need as far as a topographic survey, geotechnical investigations to align both. There's a belief that we might have some fault areas in that area as well. And then again, we want to make sure we minimize any corrosion moving forward. So. And then the last one on that, and probably the biggest cost, is right-of-way acquisition. So we have right-of-way over that existing, or easements over that existing pipeline, but it's just to maintain the pipeline, not for construction. And so basically, we're going through all those properties again. We're going to have to work out details with all of those owners. And likely, we'd like to secure some better access so that we can, again, maintain this pipeline as we move forward. Summarizing the funding, so again, with that additional cost for waterworks contracts for the corrosion engineering, it brings their total to $1,083,776. Environmental services are estimated at $200,000, capitalized labor at $200,000, and project contingency of $145,000, bringing a total funding request of $1,628,776 as part of today's request. Although that's a lot of money, it's also key to note that we have been successful in securing 2 large grants to date. The first was $750,000 from El Dorado County out of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. That will directly offset the design efforts moving forward. And then as I think it was brought up in our last board meeting that we also have secured a $10 million grant from DWR as part of their 2021 Urban Multi-Benefit Drought Relief Grant Program. That being said, I believe Brian Deason mentioned this morning that we continue to pursue grants. I think he is currently pursuing a FEMA grant to offset the pump station portion of this project. So we'll continue to try to identify those opportunities as we move forward with the design and have basically a shovel-ready project. Anything that is not picked up with grant funding obviously is going to be paid for by the district, and right now we're identifying a future bond issuance for paying for those costs. So with all that, staff is recommending option 1, which is to award a contract with Waterworks Engineers in the not-to-exceed amount of $1,083,776 for the design of the Slide Park Intertie Improvements Project, and authorize additional funding in the amounts of $200,000 for on-call environmental consulting services, $200,000 for capitalized labor, and $145,000 in project contingency for a total funding request of $1,628,776 for the Slide Park Intertie Improvements Project. Option 2 is to take other action as directed by the board, and option 3 would be no action. Of course, staff is recommending option 1.
Okay. Questions from the?
Director Veerkamp will move option 1.
Oh, well, okay, so it's been motioned by Director Veerkamp, seconded by Director Osborne to move on option 1. Any questions?
Yes, what's the timeline
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
project?
So we want, the design consultant and staff want to get on underway as quick as possible. Assuming that we get approval today, we will be meeting with staff with Waterworks staff in the next couple of weeks to really start organizing workshops and whatnot. We want to make sure that we work with operations staff to make sure that we have a good understanding of not only how they're operating the system now, but how they can operate the system once the pipeline is completed, and how that new pump station works out as well.
I guess my question really is,
Right.
to the
Yeah.
requirement for a bond issue, when do you expect that to happen?
So the design, so we're getting started right now. Design, if everything aligns, the timeline we're given is them wrapping that up in about March of next year. So we're just about 12 months in design effort. Once that's done, we basically have a shovel-ready project. So then we can adjust based on what funding comes in, or if it's a request, if another grant comes out and we need to be shovel-ready and underway in 6 months, we can accommodate that. Generally, we're planning on 2024, 25, I believe, is the requirements for spending the $10 million fund or grant that we got.
Because there's a couple other long poles in this tent. One of them is the environmental reviews and the historical and all of those. But probably an issue that may take a long time is getting all the right-of-ways from the property owners and clearing all of those things. So I'm just curious about the timing. I think the project is sorely needed to provide the redundancy. I believe that that's important for us to be able to have a dependable water supply for all our customers. And this will give us that extra redundancy to move water from the American River watershed to the Consumnes and the other way around, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, John, how many properties do we need to work through? I think there's 26.
I believe there's 26, but 2 of those are Forest Service or USBR owned. So 24, I believe. Just as a kind of an order of magnitude, I think the main ditch, we had about double that, around 40 properties. So kind of give you a level of effort. We're hoping to have that move forward with that again pretty quickly, and we have some options because again we have an existing easement there, and in a lot of those areas the pipeline is just feet off of a back property line. So if we had to adjust construction staging or whatnot, we've got options between the neighbors as well.
Thank you.
I just had just an observation, because of staffing, is this any way going to impede getting our canal with the main flume system? We're all steps to we have enough staff to keep everything going, because of all of these bidding processes and acquisition processes and all the permitting processes and all of this stuff. We just got to get the flume fixed first, you know. They're just checking with you.
Well, if you ask us, we never have enough staff, but
Well, yeah, I know.
in general, so the chunk of my time, as you may know, has been dedicated to the Folsom intake, and that project is wrapping up in the next couple months. So we will adjust as other projects come online, but for right now, I think we can steadily move this forward, at least the design phase, and then as we move to construction, whenever that is, we'll adjust at that point as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Dwyer, and I think Director Veerkamp wants to say something, but go ahead.
No, I'm good.
You're good, okay.
Just a request. We're taking a first step into a very large, important but costly project. And in going through the AIS, there was a link to the CIP and the overall estimated cost, around 27 million right now.
Right.
But I would like to, I found that, but not necessarily every other members of the public might find that, is in this and in other AISs, especially when we're starting off on a project, include the big number, the overall estimated cost.
Right in the
in like the
text.
summary or
Sure.
something, so it's a
Yeah.
prominent place.
Yeah,
So
we
we all
can-
understand that we're taking a first step towards a 27 million, probably much more project. So just a request.
That was something I was going to bring up too, but I think it's really imperative that this is where our transparency awards come in, including the notification process, so we don't review or repeat what happened with the canal.
Correct.
And it's really, really important that people be informed on the benefits of what this is doing.
Right.
So,
It's difficult at this, especially at this point. So the design or the technical memorandum had a cost in it. However, that was spanned over, I think they started that effort originally in like 2012. And so they rounded that up, and it's ballpark, I think it was 38 or 28 million? So it's a huge number. However, that being said, I'd say the appropriate time before we throw out numbers would really be at the completion of the base of the design report. And at that point, we have a good idea of what material we're using, the alignment, the depths, the soils, and that should give us a much better, much more refined, educated cost estimate to move forward with.
But your point's very valid. Instead of just showing the link, show what we think it is today.
Right.
correct. So if there aren't any other questions from board members, we'll take input from the public.
President Anzini, at this time, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 12. Would you like me to call for the vote?
Yes, please.
How do you vote, Division 1?
Aye.
Division 2?
Aye.
Division 3?
Aye.
Division 5?
Aye.
Division 4?
Aye.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
Okay, that ends the items that are action items. I will turn this over to our general counsel.
Thank you, President Anzini. The board will now convene into closed session to consider the two items agendized today on today's agenda as closed sessions A and B. I anticipate that board consideration of those two items will require at least 30 minutes.
Okay, so we will, hearing all kinds of voices here. We will adjourn to closed session
For the
with the estimated time of 30 minutes. Let's
For
make that-
members of the public, this meeting will shut down, and we will not reconvene any sooner than 10 minutes to noon. However, it could be after.
Okay, we will call this meeting back to order. General counsel?
Thank you, President Anzini. The following is my report out of closed session. The board met and conferred with its labor negotiators for closed session A, and took action as follows. The board unanimously directed the general manager to respond in writing to the Employees Association's letter dated January 27th, directed to the board of directors. On closed session B, the board met with council, provided direction, but took no reportable action, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have other items that will be coming up in the next meeting. Anything else to add to this, General Manager?
Nope, all good.
Okay. Declare closing of this meeting.